So welcome to the Tell Me More Diverse Voices Broad Art webinar. We're really excited about today's webinar. We have 4 amazing authors, and we have a great moderator, Susie Hawley, who helps me a lot with the children's titles. She's a professor of children's literature, or was a professor of children's literature, co-author of a children's literature textbook, Newbery committee member, and she's our collection development librarian for Broad Art. We have, as I said, 4 authors. The books are going to be ranging from social life to family life to wildlife, and the age is between 3 and 19 years old. And I'm going to hand it over to Lou so I can quiet my dog.
I worry about that too. My dogs are my aides and they're sitting in here and there's nobody else to take them. So if suddenly I jump up from the chair, you'll know why, because somebody has to go out and it's not me. But I want to welcome you all because I've read all of your books and I thank you for sharing them with the world. I've enjoyed every single one of them. They're fascinating, and you all are quite fascinating as well because I've researched you and know quite a bit about you. Today, we're going to start with Juno Dawson, who is our British author. She's written a number of fiction and nonfiction books for young adults. But today she's going to talk about her debut picture book, which is called You Need to Chill. It's published by Sourcebook, and it was actually published on May 2nd. Juno is widely recognized for her writing, but she's also an advocate for LBGT issues, and she has written about her own experiences. So Juno, please take it over and tell us all about your book.
Hi, my name's Juno. I'm joining you this afternoon from just outside London. I'm going to start off. I'm going to read you my story. It feels like when it's so short, it feels like the best use of my time is to actually just share the story with you. But then please do rush out and buy it for your libraries so that Sourcebooks don't mind me giving away the entire plot. The only thing is you can't really get to experience Laura Hughes's amazing illustrations this way, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Sometimes people say to me, "What happened to your brother, Bill? We haven't seen him in ages. Is he hiding? Is he ill? Is he lost in the park? Is he scared of the dark? Is he doing his homework still?" That's when I look them in the eye and say, "Hey, you need to chill." Was he eaten by a whale or shark? Was he munched up just like krill? That simply isn't true, I say, and hey, you need to chill. Is he on vacation in Barbados or Brazil? No one has gone anywhere, and hey, you need to chill. Is he at the zoo? Is he at the fair? Is he searching for a thrill? Although we do love the Ferris wheel, hey, you need to chill. But we're so confused and so concerned, we cannot rest until we find out what has happened to your older brother, Bill. Did he tumble down and hurt himself? Have they given him a pill? Is he in the pool or on the field showing off his skill? Was he taken to Mars by aliens? Is he on their spaceship still? Stop, I say. That's enough. Hey, you need to chill. There are no hungry whales, no little green men. Your hysteria is silly. The truth is that my brother Bill is now my sister, Lily. It was maybe quite a shock at first, but she's really just the same. She looks a little different and she has a new last first name. She's still clever and funny and kind and cool. She's one in a mill. And if people have a problem, we shout, "Hey, you need to chill." Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I love the way you read that out loud.
I used to be a primary school teacher.
Oh,
so
absolutely. I
there
get
you
it.
go. You never lose the skill.
Tell us about how you came up with that, how you decided that you were going to actually write that book.
This one came about really unusually in that I was approached by Farshaw Books in the United Kingdom. The editor was having a similar situation with a friend of the family, whereby a older sibling had started the process of socially transitioning, and they had come to my editor and said, is there a book in the world which explains what it is to be trans to a younger sibling? And basically there isn't. I mean, there have been some sort of storybooks or picture books which have hinted at gender transition. Often it's through like the medium of some sort of animal. And so I was like, well, what if there was just a really straightforward picture book which just set out with human characters what it means to be a young trans person? And I was reticent to begin with. I didn't kind of, I was mindful of getting into the picture book area when I'm so known for my young adult fiction in the UK. But then I thought, do you know what? I have this platform. I should use it. I should use it for good. Like, I'm being offered an opportunity to talk about trans youth in a way, that trans youth are not being given a voice in the United Kingdom right now, or in the United States, I think. And so I agreed to do it. But I said my only caveat was that I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be stupid. Being trans is hard enough without me sort of adding something heavy or mawkish to the conversation. So I wanted it to be really colorful and fun and kind of anarchic as well. I wanted the title to upset all the right people.
That's good, because it really is. The illustrations are wonderful, jolly, very jaunty, very colorful. And I would presume that this book was really written looking at the illustrations and listening to the language for children that are in, say, K-2, would you say?
Do I know what that means? No.
Oh, kindergarten.
I guess in kindergarten
through
kindergarten
second grade.
yeah. So I used to teach. So I was briefly in year 1. So that's 5 and 6 year olds. And when I was doing this book, I always had my year 1 class in mind. As a teacher, I know every single teacher and librarian out there needs a very quick picture book that is going to fill that 5 minutes when the lesson has finished, but it's not quite time to go to recess just yet. You need young children love something that have a repetition so they can learn the pattern quickly, that they can join in with and shout at the top of their lungs. And this, I know that my class back in the day would have loved this book, and they wouldn't have even thought about Lily being trans. I think they would have been more struck by the fact there's the sisterhood between the sisters, and that it's very touching.
Thank you for that. Really, thanks for actually promoting something that there was a big hole for that in our literature. Next, we're going to talk to Melissa. Melissa Cristina Marquez she was born actually in Puerto Rico, raised in Mexico, and now I think you're living in Perth, Australia. Is that right?
I am, yeah. I'm out of Australia right now.
Okay, great. She is really determined to help Latina women in the sciences and is known as the mother of sharks. Today, she'll be speaking about her debut children's picture book entitled Mother of Sharks. It's published by Penguin and was released on May 30th. It's a combination of autobiographical information mixed with some fantastic elements. So will you tell us about your story, Melissa, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Mother of Sharks, as was just said, is a story about me. Growing up, I always wanted to be a shark scientist. I wanted to be a marine biologist, but whenever I turned on the TV or read about the news about marine biologists, I never saw women, let alone Latinas. And so I grew up thinking, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't actually see myself in doing this. I don't see myself in a lineup of marine biologists. So Mother of Sharks, and the Spanish version, Madre de los Tiburones, is really a celebration of diversity, not just diversity of sharks. Because a lot of people, when they think of a shark, they think of a great white shark, tiger shark, bull shark, or a hammerhead shark. There's actually over 500 different species of sharks. And so this book celebrates not only that diversity in species of sharks, but also the diversity of the people who study sharks, such as myself, such as those who identify as something other than the white cis man that you normally see on TV when it comes to Shark Week or Shark Fest. And so this follows the story of Little Melly, so little Melissa, that goes on a fantastical time traveling adventure with a small hermit crab that she found in a tide pool to essentially realize that her dreams are pursuable no matter how big they are, and that she has the permission to dream however big she wants to.
How did you actually become so interested in sharks? Did you have an experience like Melly?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't have a time traveling hermit crab to help me out.
All right.
But the hermit crabs did end up kind of opening the door for the ocean. And when I moved from Mexico over to the States at a young age, my parents kind of plopped me down in front of a TV, and they were like, all right, watch this for a little bit while we organize the house. We don't want you running around breaking anything. And I happened to move when Shark Week was on. So me, as this Mexican child who's very excited about having an English speaking TV, but also so many US channels that you hear about growing up, just happened to click to Shark Week and saw this great white shark just breaching out of the water or jumping out of the water. And I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I want to study. And mom and dad were like, oh, it's going to be a phase, but the phase has been over 20 years now. So I don't think I'm getting out of it anytime soon.
Well, there's another story I'd love for you to tell us. It's not about your book, but I just saw a YouTube video about you and the crocodile.
Yes, I did get bitten by a crocodile while doing shark research a few years ago. I still have my leg, so no worries about that, but I do have a really cool scar that has like the jaw imprint of that American crocodile that bit me on my leg.
That sounds like a very frightening encounter. Sharks are bad
Yeah.
enough, but I also saw at the end of the video that someone asked on the panel if a shark and a crocodile were in a serious fight, who would win? And you said definitely the crocodile.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean we see it all the time here in Australia when you've got the saltwater crocodiles against the bull sharks. Usually the salties win.
Wow, that's amazing to me. I'm in Florida, so we see lots of sharks, but we don't see very many crocodiles. I think
Nah, but we have
one.
gators. We have
So,
gators. My family's in Orlando, so
oh,
same thing.
okay, okay. And it, we have a heat index of 115 today. So I'm clearly inside and plan to stay there. Jack, will you talk to us next? I want to tell a little bit about you first. You actually, I have to put my glasses back on so I can read what I wrote about you, even though I pretty much know it. You're well known for your debut title, which is See You in the Cosmos. You were born in Shanghai and you now live in Detroit, as does Andy Joe. Is that how I pronounce Z?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay. You can almost find any pronunciation online, actually. So he is the 6th grade protagonist in Many Masks of Andy Joe. The title Jack will talk about today. The book was published by Dial on June 6th, and it resonates with kids navigating the tricky waters of middle school. Readers will learn much from the rich description of Andy's Chinese American life, and I'm one reader who did.
Thanks so much.
Jack, please.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. As Sue mentioned, you might be familiar with my last middle grade novel, See You in the Cosmos. This book is a much more personal story that's based on my own experiences growing up here in Metro Detroit, I actually noticed that a lot of middle grade books with either Asian or Chinese American protagonists tended to take place in like large coastal cities or with bigger Asian populations, or in rural areas where the characters are like the only Asian person or people in their town or class. And so I kind of wanted to show a Midwestern Chinese American experience that was somewhere in between, and I think very much has its own flavor. So the book is about Andy Zhou. He's a 12-year-old who's got a lot going on in his life. His grandparents are visiting him from Shanghai, including his very frail grandfather. He's starting middle school, and his best friend, Cindy Shen, who's also Shanghainese American, and their families share a duplex together. She convinces him to bleach their hair, which goes comically wrong for Andy, and also to join the school's dance performance club. And Andy is like not a dancer at all. Because of his blotched hair job, Andy starts getting teased by his new science lab partner, Jamil. But then as the two of them get to know each other, they actually discover that they have more in common than they initially thought, and they become friends. And that sort of upends his existing best friendship with Cindy. So Andy's like the kind of kid who's like being pulled in a million different directions. And he's grappling with this feeling like he doesn't belong anywhere. Like he's always in between these different identities and relationships. And I think that his journey in this book is of Andy really stepping into these mixed identities and really growing to really be more at home with himself. This book, I think, is a book for kids who feel like their entire world is changing around them and they're just looking for something to hold on to. Just a few other quick things I wanted to mention. One is that Andy is a quieter protagonist. He's not the kid who has a big ambitious goal. He's in a way just trying to get by. And so I feel like this book can be a mirror for kids who see themselves as like the sidekick in someone else's story, and who need a nudge in really stepping into their own story and becoming the hero of their own stories. Another thing that I want to mention was that, like, while I deal with topics like bullying and anxiety and racism, I wanted to be very careful in addressing all of those things with a light touch. I didn't want this to be a heavy read, similar to what Juno was saying earlier. For all the challenges that Andy's facing and that I faced growing up, there's a lot of joy and love and comedy too. It comes out in his like grandma's cooking and his dad's like harebrained schemes. And there are bearded dragons and lion dancing and anime references. There are fart jokes and cider donuts and snowy cabins. And so I guess the last thing I want to mention was that, I mentioned that Andy gets roped into joining the school's dance club. Well, he ends up falling in with the production crew kids of this dance performance group. And it's through this and through their art and dance teachers that Andy really discovers himself as an artist. And I think one of the underlying themes is the power of art and helping a person create room to make sense of all their varying identities and really understand who they are and what's important to them. So I think, the book also has some of my own illustrations in it in the chapter headers. I don't know if you can see that clearly. And so it was a great way for me to connect with my childhood self, who loved to draw. And so writing and drawing for me personally is very much also a form of therapy. So I just want to thank you all for listening to my spiel, and I hope you all read The Many Masks with Andy Zhou and let me know what you think of it.
It was great. I'll tell you that right now, Jack. And I didn't mention the humor before, but I definitely found that. I do want to tell everyone that Jack also dyed his hair blonde.
I mean, I had to do it for research, right?
Absolutely. And if you look at some of his YouTube things, you're actually going to see those masked dancers, not the ones that are in his book, but some masked dancers that he found to do a performance. What I really loved, though, many things struck me, but I love the idea of the avalanche talking. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Andy notices that his parents and their sort of group of Shanghainese friends have this like way of interacting where they'll start talking about something and then the conversation will get louder and louder, and it gets to the point where they're practically shouting at each other. And he describes it as a snowball rolling downhill and turning into an avalanche. So he kind of like references that whenever his parents are excitedly talking about like going to Costco or something like that.
You know, I loved it because my kids say I'm like that on the telephone, but I'm not telling them about the way you described it. But also, will you tell us really what haichu is and what bubble tea is?
Yes, so haichu is a kind of chewy fruit candy. For those who it originates from Japan, and I'm starting to see it in places all over. I see it at my local Target now. It's sort of like I would say like a chewier, fruitier version of Starburst.
Okay.
It almost has the consistency of like chewing gum, but it's candy, so you can swallow it. And then bubble tea is sort of I mean, it can vary, but it's a milk tea or sometimes just a regular green tea or whatever tea that has these like tapioca pearls or jellies mixed into it. And you drink it with like a really thick straw.
Interesting. Well, I learned something else about the Chaldean community?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
was a member of. I mean, you have some little nuggets stuck in there that make one go to either the internet or a dictionary.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, so yeah, the Chaldean community is a very prominent community here in Metro Detroit, and it's something that is unique to our area. Chaldeans are Iraqi Catholics who were under religious persecution and emigrated from Iraq. The Chaldean population here in Detroit is actually the largest Chaldean population in the world, including in present-day Iraq. And so, yeah, like growing up, a lot of the kids in my schools were Chaldean, and it was just like, it wasn't something that I thought of as unusual until like, I spent some time living in New York until like I went other places outside of Metro Detroit and discovered that there weren't many Chaldean people there. And so, yeah, so I mentioned earlier that there's the Chaldean character Jamil who starts out kind of like teasing Andy, and I really wanted to sort of, paint this picture in Jamil of a complex, like nuanced, non-one-dimensional character, because I think a lot of times when we authors are trying to write outside our own group, there's this tendency to like, even make like the good, like, the good quote unquote diverse characters as like one-sided or like, one-dimensional, and that they're like all good. And that creates a problem in terms of like tokenism, right? And so I think my approach is just to, create a real life human being that was surrounded by a community, and through that show that, this one person doesn't represent the group. And also this one person has their flaws and weaknesses and has their redeeming qualities, just like every other character in this book.
that was great. Thanks. Okay, Aisha, it's your turn. Aisha Saeed is the final author today, and only because she's written for the oldest audience. I guess that's the way I want to put it. She's American, living in Atlanta, but her ancestral roots are Pakistani. She's a founding member of #WeNeedDiverseBooks. She's the winning author of Books for Children and will be speaking to us today about her newest book, which is 40 Words to Love, to be published by Random House on August 22nd. So this one really isn't out yet, but soon. Oop, we're not hearing you, Aisha.
Oh, I had someone mowing the lawn and I had myself on mute. So they stopped right as it was my turn, which is fortuitous timing. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm Aisha Saeed, and this is my the cover for 40 Words for Love. And I do want to just pause to say all the covers of all these books that we've been talking about are so beautiful. Like they're just luminous. They're all, I don't know, they all kind of felt like of a theme. Like there's very bright and happy, happy colors. So my book, this is my first solo young adult book since my debut with Penguin, Written in the Stars. This book is a story that is gonna, it's not technically magical realism, but it's the closest description to it that I can give, which is that it's a story about this town where once the waters there were beautiful pink and lavender, and they had healing powers. There was this factory in town that used to make candy using that water, which was said to heal and soothe people's hearts. And one day there's a tragedy and a young boy dies, and everything goes away. The water changes, it's now gray, and the people who had the candy factory, they shut down and leave. And it's a story about a town going through economic collapse. And it's so within this community, there's the locals, and then there's people who came from another place where the weather got way too cold and dangerous, and they were seeking refuge in this community, and they were welcomed with open arms for years. But now that the waters turned gray, resources are dwindling, the locals are trying to find someone to blame, and they decide, well, maybe it's them. Maybe it's these new people who came here to seek refuge. Maybe it's all their fault. And I mean, it's not very difficult to see the, you know, where the inspiration for this comes from. It was definitely something that, you know, it explores what it is to be scapegoated. It's a story sort of about immigration, but it's told through magical lens. And it was inspired actually by, I was in Yellowstone. We were driving to Yellowstone, a national park during our a summer vacation with my family. And we drove through a very small town in, I believe it was Idaho, and the population was about 200 people. And when we stopped to get gas there, there was a big sign that said baklava, authentic baklava. We're like, here? That's odd. And so we went in, we met the woman. She was from Syria. She had come out, it was during the time there was a major crisis happening and people had come as refugees. And, you know, she talked about what it was like to be one of the only people of color in this community, in a very small community. And from there, the idea kind of began, like, what is that like? What is it like when things go bad? And that's kind of what I wanted to explore. And I usually write contemporary realistic. I think one of the books that I'm probably most known for are my middle grade books, including Amal and Bound. And this book, because I know that I have a readership that likes to read my middle grade, I really took a lot of care with this book, though it is a young adult book. It is a book that absolutely a kid at the reading level who would like to read it, who is younger than teen, could absolutely read, understand, and process. So, so I kind of wrote with that in mind, knowing that a lot of my readership can be young. I factored that in as I wrote this book. So I hope you'll enjoy reading it. It is
And there
not.
was a little romance there too.
Yes, it's a love story between Roth and Yaz. So the story is told through alternating points of view of the two characters you see on the page. Roth, who is from the other place called Golub, and Yaz, who's from Moonlight Bay, the town that's going through the economic strife. And they've been friends since he arrived when he was 7 years old. And they both, I think, they both have their own things that they're hoping for. They've just graduated high school. They're figuring out their next steps. And they're also realizing that they have feelings for each other, but they're not sure, especially Ralph, that he could be allowed to, because there's certain rules within his community that would prevent that. So in some ways, it's a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet type of story. Yeah, so there's a lot of different things I was exploring within it.
Well, let's say with a good ending, because when you say Romeo and Juliet, you know, we all imagine.
I don't write tragic endings. That's like, I write so many different things. I write fantasy, I write contemporary, but one thing all my stories do have in common is I like to write the books I like to read, which are ones that don't end on tragedy. So no, not a Romeo and Juliet tragedy, but just, you know, some inspiration.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm so fascinated by the fact that you actually chose the Golub tree and that you came up with water that was pink and lavender. Where did that all come from?
You know, it's interesting. I think I don't know if you've read it's an adult novel, Life of Pi. I think a lot of people have read it. And there was like an island in the Life of Pi that, you know, it was he described it so amazing. I was convinced it was real. And I was like, no, this has to be real. No, he couldn't have made this up. I was Googling, I was like, I want to visit this place. And it wasn't real. He made it up. And so sort of like my love for magical realism, the way that things are just presented, because I think magical realism is, I mean, there's magic in our everyday world. There's so much beauty. Like I just went to Banff in Canada and they have glacier lakes that are green, like truly green and bright, bright blue, blue that I couldn't imagine. And so that's kind of what inspired
Okay.
me to make a fantastical ocean color. And climate change is happening. And it was really sad in Banff hearing that these glacier lakes will one day be gone. And as you know, as the heat is rising and the glaciers are melting that are feeding these lakes. And so that's part of where that came from. It's just there's so much beauty in our world. There's so much that I went to actually Puerto Rico recently, Vieques, the island of Vieques, and the bioluminescent bay, and it was so beautiful. And you know, all of these things are so climate dependent, they're so fragile. And so that was part of the inspiration. We currently are also living in a world that is undergoing, you're in a heat index of 117, you know, there's so much happening and there's so much to
Right.
process. And part of this book was processing all these changes happening so quickly. Yeah.
And now that you were talking about that, I just realized in Venice just had that crazy thing in their water. Was it orange? I can't remember which color it was, but very peculiar. Well, Aisha, you've had 9 jobs and it's amazing. Juno, she was also a primary teacher, and then she was a lawyer. And then and maybe before that, she sold jeans at the Gap. And I don't know how many other jobs, but how did you finally realize that you could indeed be an author?
I think I think a lot of us in this panel right now can probably relate to what I'm going to say, which is that like we probably all like to read, and it was something, writing was something we all probably love to do, but it took a long time to get there because I really never saw any books with people featuring me, written by people like me, and it truly did. It took some time. It took some time. I think one of the first books that inspired me was Jhumpa Lahiri, which is an adult novel, Interpreter of Maladies, her book. And just realizing that there is a place for those stories. And so, yeah, so it took some time. So yeah, I worked at a lot of different jobs. I was a lawyer, I was a teacher, and I decided to take a leap of faith and take 1 year off just to see what could happen with this writing thing. And now I'm here. So about 15 books later. So yeah.
Well, all of you have actually had similar experiences in finding your way to authorship, and each of you has done something very autobiographical in your books. And I think we have 3 debut books, not necessarily the first books you've written, but in the first time genre that you've written in. Well, I love the whole thing. I think you all are amazing. I really am so happy that I got to read these books, and I'm hoping everybody that listens to this broadcast will feel the same way and find your books.
Do we have any questions from anyone, any of the attendees for our authors, or do the authors, do any of you want to ask another author a question?
I'm going to tell you right now, I need to get up and let this dog out. Okay, I'll be right back. It'll just take me a minute.
You and me and our dogs.
I know.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you to our sponsors and thank you to the authors. This will be recorded, so you will get a copy of the recording. Hopefully, I will be able to edit out my dog barking in the beginning, but we really appreciate everybody being here. Love your books and the stories, the way you've created them. Every one of them is different and very exciting. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for our sponsors, and we're going to say goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.